wizard, Harry.
I'm a what?
A wizard.
Modern classics is a term you may have heard before, and when it comes to Harry Potter, that phrase is tattooed on the series like a lightning scar to the forehead. The Harry Potter series became one of, and still is, the most popular book and film franchises of all time. The book started a movement of renewed interest in reading in children and quite a few adults when it hit shelves in '97. That's right, Harry and Friends have been around for a quarter of a century. That feeling of being ancient is going to happen a few times during this episode, so just prepare yourself for that. Today on Fantasizing About Fantasy Films, we're heading to Hogwarts as the latest entry into the wizarding world, The Secrets of Dumbledore, rolls out to theaters. So let's grab the sorting hat and figure out where we belong, as He Who Must Not Be Named can pop up anywhere while we cast the spell of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer Stone.
Oculus Reparo. That's better, isn't it?
The universe of Harry Potter is pretty vast. Part of the appeal of the books and films is a mythology that's well designed, thought out, and has a history that clicks with fantasy fans who love researching and finding connections and surprises. Needless to say, this made the wizarding world guaranteed crack for those of us who love that sort of thing. What this means, though, is there is a lot of stuff here to get through. There are actually 8 Harry Potter films alone, not including the Fantastic Beasts films. So we're going to focus this episode on the first which started it all, The Sorcerer's Stone. It's the film that introduces us all to the major players, for the most part, in the story of Harry Potter and the taste of the universe which it takes place in. Writer J.K. Rowling's story is about as magical a one as you can get when it comes to creating Harry Potter, and also filled with about as much tragedy as the young wizard's story. Part of Rowling's inspiration for the characters came during a long delay while being stuck on a train, such as the Hogwarts Express, for around 4 hours when the 3 lead characters of Harry, Hermione, and Ron popped into her mind. Rowling kept writing the first book, stating that the story and its creation helped her deal with a number of tragic events that she was experiencing. Her mother passed away, her marriage fell apart, and she was left a single mother with no employment all in the span of a short while. She also had a miscarriage. Rowling channeled the emotional whirlwind of her life's experience into the story which would eventually lead her from being broke to being worth nearly $1 billion. The Sorcerer's Stone was originally released in Europe as Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, but when it came to North America, the decision was made that the title of the book sounded, quote-unquote, too boring for kids in the States. Philosophy? What reader would possibly want to hear about that? Hence, you'll see a different title in the book depending on where it was printed. This would actually be the case with the film as well, which also meant certain scenes had to be reshot for those releases, where actors would be filmed saying Philosopher's Stone and then shoot the scene saying Sorcerer Stone.
Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone.
The what?
Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Sorcerer's Stone.
The what?
Early on, Steven Spielberg was attached to direct the film and would actually work on it for about half a year before leaving. The Harry Potter books at the time were massively popular, and you can only imagine a Spielberg version of them. It may have literally broke the world. We'll never know, though. Another name that, according to him, creator J.K. Rowling wanted to take on the project was Terry Gilliam, a man whose work we've featured on this show before. According to Gilliam, when he was interviewed by EW, J.K. Rowling and the producer wanted me. Then wiser people, studio heads, prevailed. I was the clear choice. At one point they approached Alan Parker and he said, "Why are you talking to me? Gilliam is the guy you should have doing this." But I knew I was never going to get the job. Looking back, again, we can only imagine what a Gilliam-built Hogwarts would be like, but we can pretty much assume he'd have gone even darker than the film actually did, which is pretty dark. Chris Columbus, who had a history of family-friendly films under his belt, including Home Alone, Mrs. Doubtfire, as well as having written Gremlins and The Goonies, just to name a few, got the job.
Goonies never say die!
He wasn't guaranteed it, though, and actually went into battle to get the spot, having given an hour-long monologue about why he should be chosen and writing a massive director's version of the script to show his version of the film. Columbus, much like many adults, had been told to read the novels by his child and fell in love with them and was determined to get the gig. The film would follow the first book, which introduces Harry Potter as the beleaguered young man who lives in a closet under a staircase. Orphaned due to the death of his parents, he is raised by the Muggle family of his aunt and uncle, along with their son, who bullies and abuses Harry mercilessly. The Dursleys hate, and I mean hate, magic.
There's no such thing as magic.
But odd things keep happening with Harry, and eventually the truth of his parents and destiny are revealed, as he is the boy who lived. Harry's life and fate are tied together with the evil wizard Voldemort, the one who killed his parents and attempted to, and failed, to kill Harry. Harry Potter heads to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to learn magic and to follow his destiny with the help of his friends, Ron and Hermione. Along his journey, he will be helped knowingly by the giant Hagrid and the head of Hogwarts, Professor Dumbledore. Unknowingly, he will be assisted by the mysterious Professor Snape, who he will soon find out has close ties with Harry's mother. Filming would begin in the UK in the year 2000. John Williams would create the iconic score for the film. Williams wouldn't be the only tie to Star Wars, as ILM worked on some of the many special effects in the movie, along with other production houses. One hard rule for casting was required by J.K. Rowling, and that was the cast had to all be British. And so for Robin Williams, who at one time really wanted to be Hagrid, that was not to be. Luckily for everyone else, though, the casting of the film was actually quite perfect. And in the case of Robbie Coltrane, who did get to play Hagrid, was specifically who the creator wanted in the first place. Honestly, I don't think I could see anyone else as Hagrid. He was truly made for the role. Daniel Radcliffe, who was cast as Harry, made his acting debut as the lead character in a BBC production of David Copperfield, another book with the lead character's name in the title. Radcliffe brought the wide-eyed wonder of Harry, as well as the moments where you could see that bit of the dark in him. You couldn't really blame him, though, considering what the Dursleys put him through. The role would wind up changing his life, as the film would for nearly everyone involved. Emma Watson would be Hermione, the Muggle-born friend of Harry, who is really the brains of the operation. Watson was fantastic in the role, and would inspire young women around the world not to be ashamed to love learning, and to embrace being smart and savvy.
You've got dirt on your nose, by the way. Did you know? Just there.
Rupert Grint would be cast as Harry and Hermione's best friend, Ron Weasley. Another first-time major picture role, as was Watson, Grint brought a lovable goofiness to Ron.
Shut up, Harry.
We got to see the progression of Ron Weasley from a rather cowardly kid to a hero as he defends his friends and joins the fight against He Who Must Not Be Named. While those three are the main protagonists in the film, the world of Harry Potter would eventually have nearly every well-known and iconic British actor within the series in either a major role or as a supporting character. Dame Maggie Smith, John Cleese, John Hurt, Warwick Davis, and over the course of the film's series, many, many more. Scenes were shot of late great comic actor Rick Mayall as Peeves the Poltergeist in Sorcerer Stone, but these were cut from the release. But I want to take a moment to talk about two specific actors who are sadly no longer with us, but are legends in the world of film and in this specific series. Richard Harris was cast as Dumbledore, the wizard who seemingly knows everything and helps place Harry on his path. Harris refused the role until his granddaughter finally told him she wouldn't talk to him ever again if he didn't take the part. The legendary drinker and wild man of cinema, Harris's gravelly voice and demeanor of mischief was spot on for the role.
What happened down in the dungeons between you and Professor Quirrell is a complete secret. So, naturally, the whole school knows.
While Dumbledore wasn't Harris's final role, it was quite close to it. When he passed, fans were devastated. Actor Michael Gambon would step into the robes of Albus Dumbledore in the following films, but I really did love Harris's performance.
Mr. Potter.
And now let's talk about my favorite character, and that of many fans, Severus Snape. Alan Rickman was quite simply born for Snape. The actor took this role, the books, and the films to heart as much as Snape did his love for Lily. That little secret was something that only Rickman knew for quite a while, as Rowling let him in on it before it was ever known in the books or to the public at large. That secret knowledge gave Rickman the motivation for the character and for the way he reacted and emoted during the films. Alan Rickman gave everything to Snape, and his performance makes these films, at least to me. Severus Snape is one of the most tragic and heroic characters of the last many years, and for a YA series, his life, motivations, and ultimate fate are incredibly complex and sad. Rickman embraced all of it and would continue supporting the books and the films until his untimely death in 2016 from cancer, something he would also keep secret from nearly everyone. There will never be another like Alan Rickman, whose voice could shake the rafters and who you could truly believe would defend you against any creature of the dark arts. And we'll love him always.
Really? After all this time? Always.
There are a number of set pieces within Sorcerer Stone that are rather unforgettable, such as the first time we get to see Quidditch, the main sports game in the wizarding world. Quidditch became such a sensation due to it actually being a designed entire game, sort of a hybrid of broom flying, dodgeball, and soccer, that it inspired real-life Quidditch to start happening all around the world, sans the flying broomsticks part. There are still broomsticks being ridden, though. There's even a wheelchair version of the sport. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is surprisingly dark, as I stated before. For a children's film, it hits about the level of some of the dark Disney movies of the 80s, which are pretty extraordinary. He Who Must Not Be Named slaughtering and drinking the blood of unicorns to prolong his life, for instance, or the disturbing revelation of what is under Professor Quirrell's turban,
Harry Potter.
the parasitic head of Voldemort, which originally reminded me of the Legend of Edward Mordrake, but now makes me think of Malignant because, of course it does. All of this makes you realize, especially as the films progress, that the magical world of Harry Potter is not a safe and cuddly one. It starts off with Harry's parents sacrificing themselves to keep him safe from Voldemort, and doesn't actually let up from there. We quickly see being a child doesn't mean you're protected from the darkness.
I think it is clear that we can expect great things from you. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible. Yes, but great.
I think it's safe to say that Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was a hit. With a budget of $125 million, it grossed over $1 billion. That's billion with a B. The franchise would only keep growing, as would the celebrity of the three young leads. Numerous toys, collectibles, lots of wands, and of course books and video games would be made. The wizarding world would take over our own. Theme parks would have entire sections dedicated to recreating parts of Harry's universe, and every Halloween since has had more than a few Hogwarts robes trick-or-treating. But Harry Potter and his creator aren't without some debate. No, I'm not going to delve into all of the J.K. Rowling drama or all the happy fun times happening with the new franchise. I'm sure you already know all of that. I'm talking about the fact that Harry Potter isn't as original an idea as you may think. Well, the story of a young child who has nothing and suddenly discovers they are special and are rescued from their sad circumstances isn't really new in the realms of books. Specifically, the idea behind Harry Potter is really familiar to a few things that came before it. Spellcasting 101 was a computer game released in 1990 and created by the legendary game developer Steve Maritzky. Maritzky actually worked with Douglas Adams on the PC game for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Warcraft Adventures. The game followed a teenage geeky kid in glasses named Ernie Eaglebeak in an alternate reality where magic has taken the place of science. He goes to a highly lauded school called Sorcerer's University, and you, playing as Ernie, learn magic and go on all sorts of wacky, sometimes adult, adventures. It's a text adventure game and features funny, unique names for other characters like Snow Bunny and Rottenwood. The game specifically always stood out to me as something that was uncanny when it came to being close to Harry's story, albeit if you toss Potter into a blender with Leisure Suit Larry. I mean, look at that box cover. But while Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone may not be completely unique in this world, we can't deny the impact and importance of the book and the film. Harry Potter gave children and adults a new mythology and universe to explore and to learn. It inspired a massive return to the printed page and gave parents and their young ones a new bedtime story ritual and way to bond. It was filled with characters not only we fell in love with, but so did the actors. We got to see the stars of this film grow up before our eyes. It breaks my heart to realize that Rupert Grint actually has a kid of his own now. Or actually, that sound may just have been my hip. But yes, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer Stone, or Philosopher's Stone, is actually old enough now to drink. So, grab a butterbeer, or something stronger, and let's make a toast to Harry, Snape, and whomever that next poor Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher may be. They'll need all the help they can get.
Yeah, it's strange to be going home, doesn't it?
I'm not going home. Not really.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
She's not even a child anymore. You have to let her grow up.
Love her, but don't try to possess her.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
Absolutely out of the question.
So far in this series, we focused only on fantasy films from the 80s, but this episode, we're going to branch out to a more modern movie, but one firmly rooted in the style and films of the 80s fantasy genre. Mirrormask would be right at home on a shelf next to Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, and there's a reason for that. While it was released in 2005, Mirrormask was inspired by both of those films and would come from the same house, that of the Jim Henson Company. It would also spring from the mind of one of the fantasy genre's kings, Neil Gaiman, and artist Dave McKean, who helped create some of the most striking visual art of the last few decades in comics for DC, Dark Horse, and so much more. Mirrormask is both modern and classical. It's dark, light, beautiful, and terrifying. Much like the characters within it, it crosses between two worlds.
I don't really know where I am.
This is a perfect time to travel back to the world created by two masters of magic as we await not only the first live-action appearance of Gaiman's Sandman, but the second series of Good Omens. So let's grab a really useful book and maybe not pet the cats as we prepare to enter the realms of Mirrormask.
Answer my riddle, and only then you can pass. Fail, and I devour you, bones and all.
Mirrormask was inspired by Labyrinth and The Dark Crystal, both films which in the late 90s and early 2000s had a resurgence thanks to DVD and kids who grew up with the films returning to them time and again. The Jim Henson Company wanted to find another dark gem, slight pun intended, within the fantasy genre. Sequels and prequels to both Labyrinth and The Dark Crystal were tossed about, with The Dark Crystal eventually getting a prequel series on Netflix a few years ago. But it was decided that a new story would be the focus. Lisa Henson, Jim's daughter and CEO of the Jim Henson Company, contacted Neil Gaiman about interest in writing the film and working with Dave McKean on the project. McKean had done some short films as well as collaborated with Gaiman on previous work, including a number of comics. The two agreed and began working at the Hensons' home on ideas. Again, there are some similarities that came from Labyrinth, which both Gaiman and McKean make no qualms about, but Mirrormask actually follows a different path for the young woman at the story's center of self-discovery. Mirrormask, in a way, is the dark reflection of Labyrinth. Again, no pun intended, and is in every way the combination of Gaiman and McKean in both story and appearance.
Oh, this is a dream or not, we're definitely heading the right way.
Mirrormask follows the teenager Helena, who would appear to be seemingly living the dream of every child by living in a circus that is ran by her parents.
Helena, juggle. Helena, sell the popcorn. Helena, smile for the punters.
It's an old-fashioned looking affair and obviously family ran, with Helena's parents performing multiple acts and characters themselves, along with the rest of the troupe. In a twist, Helena dreams of running away from the circus, as she's tired of having to work and deal with the stresses that come from the way of life. The night of the current performance, she and her mother get in a fight because Helena isn't prepared to go on stage, and when her mother says,
"It's gonna be the death of me,"
Helena whispers,
I wish I was.
After already having performed an aerial routine, her mother, while preparing to go on during Helena and her father's comedy juggling skit as a gorilla, collapses and has to be taken to the hospital. Some days later, Helena is staying at her nan's while her mother is still in the hospital. the circus having stopped performing while they await the news of her outcome. Helena blames herself, and it's obvious that things aren't going well for her father financially as the other performers appear ready to leave and go on to greener pastures. That same day, she gets the news that they plan to operate on her mother. It's highly implied she has some sort of cancer or tumor in her brain. Helena, a talented artist, has decorated the walls of her room and roof of her Nan's apartment with designs of another world she's created. That night, she finds herself awakened in that very world, populated by familiar, dream versions of her friends and a man in a mask named Valentine. It seems everyone in this world wears a mask, or very nearly everyone. Valentine and Helena barely escape from an evil shadow-like entity that devours Valentine's partner and anything it comes into contact with. The two are taken to the Minister of the City of Lights, who appears to be Helena's father. The Queen of Light, who resembles Helena's mother, has been placed under a spell due to the Princess of Shadows stealing a charm from the city and escaping to another realm.
You keep talking about a charm. What kind of a charm?
Everyone thinks Helena is the princess as they look identical, but the loss of the charm has created an imbalance, and so the worlds of both light and dark are slowly disintegrating. Helena and Valentine must get back the charm and find the Mirrormask in order to set things right and return the Princess of Shadows back to her world before everything ends. But this isn't going to be an easy quest, and both Valentine and Helena learn some hard truths about themselves along the way.
He said the charm was a mirror mask.
Filming began in 2003 with the location of the film set in Brighton, as McKean thought it was more bohemian and more logical place for a circus to take place in. Mirrormask took about a year and a half to complete filming. McKean had a budget of around $4 million, which he was able to stretch thanks to using newly graduated film and animation students. McKean's designs were beautiful, creepy, and stunning. In interviews, McKean stated he was heavily inspired by silent films such as Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and German Impressionism, and it shows in the landscapes that are skewed and angled. They would be right at home with Cesare stalking them. The designs also truly do look like Helena's drawings come to life. Mirrormask at times looks as though it's stop motion, but then you realize it's more than that. I can't think of another film that resembles it.
This is bizarre.
It's supposed to be a dreamscape, and it truly is. It's stunningly dark and beautiful and creates a perfect atmosphere for what the story is. It's not only the visuals here that make Mirrormask so striking. Gaiman and McKean created a story that's one of self-discovery, but also talks to the pains we go through, especially as teenagers, when life hits us with emotional turmoil. The quote-unquote Mirrormask is a perfect phrase for what Helena goes through as she watches the Princess of Shadows taking over her life and doing things she said she'd never do. While her mother is sick and possibly going to die, Helena's shadow self acts out against her father, makes out with bad boys, smokes, and rebels against everything just as many a teenage girl has. Helena screams from the other side of the window that she would never do these things, and it's a great metaphor for a young girl trying to make sense of it all. Yes, this was talked about in Labyrinth, but here it hits more at the darker edge of life and adolescence.
You give up too easily.
I'm never gonna find it.
Helena, as well as the Shadow Princess, both want to break free from where they feel they are trapped. The mask analogy throughout the film is also an interesting one. The question seems to be, how do people know who you are without the mask you wear? Everyone but Helena wears a mask within her dream world. Helena is able to switch places back with the Shadow Princess by wearing the Mirrormask.
This is my world! No! I like it here! I just want a real life!
Real life. You couldn't handle real life.
Taking back her own likeness in the real world. It's some powerful imagery and gives us a lovely metaphor on the duality of human nature, the light and the dark, something Helena herself has shown with the behavior towards her mother originally and her desire to save her in this bizarre world later. This also stretches to how Helena views her own mother, with the Shadow Queen representing how Helena sees her mother's desire to have her remain at the circus and controlling her life. Also the Queen of Light, who is beautiful, kind, and nurturing, but both of them having her mother's face. Gaiman had just had published Coraline only a couple of years earlier, and we see some similar themes within Mirrormask that appear in that book. The other mother, as well as the young girl traveling through a nightmare landscape. Here, the Shadow Queen only wants her daughter back, and since Helena looks like her, she'll do. The transformation of Helena into the image of the Shadow Princess is one of the most effective and creepy scenes in the film, and was one of the first sequences to be released from it. Taking the love song from the Carpenters, Close to You, McKean and company warp it into a robotic, stalker-like lullaby as the automatons mold Helena into a black-eyed, black-nailed doppelganger of the princess.
They long to be close to you.
It's perfect. Gaiman's love for stories and books is represented throughout the film as well. The Very Useful book helps Helena throughout the film, and the Insulted books who fly themselves back to the library save Valentine and Helena from the darkness. Speaking of Helena and Valentine, let's talk about the cast. Stephanie Leonidas was cast as Helena, and she is fantastic in the role. She's likable and can also play the bratty parts. She looks amazing when bedecked in the shadowy finery of the princess. Leonidas would go on to a number of genre roles, including Dracula, Atlantis, Defiance, and Killjoys. At the time of shooting, the young-looking Leonidas was actually 21 years old. Jason Barry was Valentine. Interestingly, while not as big an age difference as was in Labyrinth, Barry was 12 years older than Leonidas. Throughout the film, it's implied that Valentine is, fitting due to the name, a love interest for Helena. Barry was charming and played Valentine rather manic and overly dramatic in his manner, which you would expect from a performer and a very important man. We do get to see Barry out of his mask a couple of times during his future vision and his appearance at the end. Jason Barry plays this role with his native Irish brogue. Gina McKee and Rob Brydon play Helena's parents, Joanne and Morris. McKee was of course the Queen of Light and the Queen of Shadows, and looked amazing in both roles. The Queen of Shadows was absolutely haunting, and I'm truly shocked we don't see more cosplays of her. Brydon also plays the role of the Prime Minister. Both of them have had impressive careers in film and television. You'll hear a few familiar voices throughout the film, coming from the creatures inhabiting the dream world of Mirrormask, such as Stephen Fry and Lenny Henry.
Information paperbacks. Top floor.
Another standout of Mirrormask is the soundtrack, which is heavy with saxophone and has a feel that would be very much at home in the 80s. This is thanks to composer Ian Bellamy. The score is bluesy, synthy, if that's a word, and uses at times an ethereal vocal track, at times simply singing Helena's name. Mirrormask was originally intended for a direct-to-video release, but managed to get a very limited theatrical run. Gaiman fans discovered the film on DVD and loved it. Over the years, it has grown in popularity, though it is still not as widely known as Labyrinth or The Dark Crystal. The film was actually released with those two films as part of the Jim Henson Fantasy Film Collection on disc, and can still be found for purchase in that collection, as well as on its own in Blu-ray and DVD, though it is becoming harder to find. It even garnered a release on the now dead UMD format for the PSP. The illustrated script of the film was released and is now a sought-after piece by many a Gaiman fan, and McKean fan as well. There was also a beautiful art of the film book called The Alchemy of Mirrormask produced. Leonidas performed the audiobook version of the film, which is available on Audible. Sadly, not much in the way of merchandise was made for the film, which I think is a shame. I'd give a kidney for a talking sphinx or a creepy human-faced cat doll. Which reminds me, I wonder if those inspired that bit in What We Do in the Shadows. Dark Horse did release a few figure sets in 2005, along with a journal of the Really Useful book. These are rare to find, but my favorite would have to be the bust of the Shadow Queen, which is gorgeous. While Mirrormask didn't even make a fourth of its budget back in box office, it has continued to grow a following, and I think I would truly love for more people to discover it. As I said, there aren't enough cosplays out there based on these designs, but there are some, and they are awesome. I think the film deserves more eyeballs, be they on spindly metal legs or in your head on it. Mirrormask is a beautiful entry into the fantasy genre, and has a pedigree that is reflected, okay, that is a pun, throughout the film. You owe it to yourself to step through the doorway into this world and to get close to the shadows. But be warned, you might find yourself staying.
You can't run away from home without destroying somebody's world.